Alright, children, I got the message. I guess I could afford to skip episodes back when I didn't even have 1,000 subscribers.
Ooh, I see it's the time for Doctor Who reviews. What a sad and lonely concept.
Sad, yes, but lonely?
I'll never be lonely again.
Now, however, when I consider how I gave practically every single episode of series 8 to 12 the thorough treatment, I think it's highly unfair that I should be cherry-picking episodes when I gave later series, and clearly inferior ones at that, far more attention. Especially when people on my Discord server make gorgeous charts like this that show how shallow and overly critical I truly am. There's also a daily poll, announcements in case videos of mine don't show up in your sub box, you can ask me questions, share artwork, and there's just a general good vibe from all the awesome bennies that make the server as great as it is. Go and check it out after you're done watching this video, because it's just that cool. So, without further ado, let's talk Fires of Pompeii.
We're in Pompeii, and it's Volcano Day.
It's Volcano Day.
So the Doctor does another one of his famous miscalculations, landing in the right time period but the wrong location. We have the typical companion being shown around the shops, and I found her attempting to break the TARDIS's translator circuits rather amusing. Donna answered a question I didn't even know I wanted answering. There was another amusing moment when the TARDIS got sold to Peter Capaldi, having the Doctor's question answered in the most hilarious fashion.
What's he buying a wooden box for? Modern art!
Oh god, I miss him as the Doctor. Unfortunately, he then babbles some expository dialogue and then they go and rip off Mary Poppins. Hey, I didn't know Ace Creeper had an older sister. Meanwhile, English accent Amy Pond runs around stalking our protagonists and exclaiming their presence to her fellow members of the occult. It's very amusing that a future Doctor and companion would star in this episode, but I just found all the bowing, performing arts, dance moves, and eyes drawn on hand stuff sometimes annoying and other times hilarious. Another quake happens, leading to another Mary Poppins moment. Ugh. Fortunately, the stupidity ends briefly when the Doctor and Donna try to reclaim the TARDIS. It's great seeing this stiff, wealthy family full of pride and honour get completely trampled on by the pair pretending to be marble inspectors. The idea that the Romans didn't even have a word for volcano at this point is pretty astonishing. Not entirely sure how true the statement is, especially by the end where they essentially create the word, but the idea that evacuation attempts are futile sets up some great drama for Donna as the story unfolds. Accompanied by the insistence that history must remain intact, there's definitely a feeling of inevitable doom brewing beneath the story. Then the cab driver from the Sherlock pilot turns up, another Roman soothsayer who thinks he's all that. The family's daughter then comes in at the nick of time to make the room orange? The obsession with prophecies in this episode acts only to tease future events like the return of Rose and the episode Turn Left. Sure, if you're tuning in every week as intended, this might not be too bad, but having the knowledge of future episodes like I do, especially as they were broadcasted half my life ago, moments like this just feel like filler to me. Two incarnations of the Doctor then chat and establish that the Sisterhood are breathing in rock, and then David goes off with the Sun to break into the cabbie's house. They find that he's building something mechanical and not of this time period when suddenly the guy turns up with two guards behind him. Despite breaking into his house, Taximus Maximus just lets the Doctor rearrange the blocks? I'll give credit where it's due though. This guy prompts his guards to attack the Doctor for insulting the gods. So I guess a Roman would feel more insulted by blasphemy than burglary, providing the pair an easy means of escape. This bizarre mentality manifests a little later on when a slave tries to bless a big lava monster only to be absolutely incinerated. Meanwhile, Donna has this boring conversation with the daughter about TK Maxx, which just spiraled into hilariousness when the painted hands covered their eyes again. These moments with fire overlapping the shots do not look good at all. I don't even know how in 2008 they thought this effect would look good. All this stuff with the fiery priests is just so lame. The Doctor comes back to Capaldi's house only to find a lava monster monster has magically made its way up from the depths to the surface. None of this scene looks very good either. I just didn't feel like this bit had much intensity, and the build up to it, i.e. monstrous footsteps outside knocking over some chicken stands with cuts every time a thud happened, it's all just meh. Donna gets captured by the Sisterhood, and the cringe came full force with threats of death and shouts of gobby protest. To make matters worse, the Doctor shows up without explanation of how he found the place and just blabs his way around the sisters despite no men being allowed in here. It renders Donna's kidnapping completely pointless, just for this big reveal that the priestess is turning to stone. She sounds like a Cyberman with asthma. Just in case you didn't quite catch what she said, all the girls on the floor started chanting in this hilarious fashion, and even the Doctor and Donna both say it for that oh so needed clarity. It ends on a good note though. God knows where the Doctor got that water pistol from, but oh my god is it funny to see him squirting water at the priestess.
I bloody love you!
Lucius Vorenus then starts to recite the Lord's Prayer whilst the Doctor and Donna make their way into the volcano. This is kind of stupid considering how they don't start to incinerate the further they go, but this idea of reaching the melting point is used for a more dramatic purpose. The pair have this fiery conversation about historic events being fixed or in flux, the Doctor's burden as a Time Lord becoming more apparent to Donna in this scene. I don't think he can literally see the difference between the two though, he just has to make judgment calls on all the places he goes to. It could be the case that anything before the 21st century is a fixed point in time, seeing as that's where he gets his companions from, so I think this concept is more to keep his companions safe than the universe, otherwise he just wouldn't travel anywhere or change anything ever again. The male soothsaying clan then arrive carrying those bloody slabs of circuit with them. It just looks so funny, especially as the backdrop is just some cliff in the UK that a giant CGI monster crawls out of. I guess you gotta work with what you've got, but none of these volcano scenes had me fooled. Even when the Doctor shot up the gigantic monster with his water pistol made the prop lose its novelty. They needed buckets of water earlier, now a little dribble is able to stop them? These things aren't intimidating at all. Then Dr. Donna and Lucius have a shouting contest, merely establishing the Pyrovile's planet vanished for the finale. Honestly, the twist that the Doctor and Donna have to pick between the Earth and Pompeii was a nice moment. It rounded off Donna's concerns for the city rather well, but what transpired after they pushed the button was laughably bad. Oh, it just doesn't stop.
Super hot fire. I spit that.
It's honestly just the bad guys and the monsters of this episode that feel so out of place and needless, because as soon as they're dealt with, the disaster that follows is really frightening and emotional. This shot of the pair running away from Mount Vesuvius, how the sky turns from day to darkness, it's all great stuff. Donna kind of spoils the atmosphere a bit when she screams to the crowds and tries to cuddle that little boy. Thankfully, the guilt she feels manifests awesomely when they return to the TARDIS. The Doctor was literally about to take off without her because he couldn't bear the thought of remembering the sacrifice he made for the good of the universe, really. Just seeing Donna's crying face accompanied by this innocent family huddling in fear brings our hero back to do one good thing, enough to make it feel like the journey wasn't entirely for nothing. It's the little things like this that make the Doctor such a rootable character. He bears the burden of existing in 4 dimensions instead of 3, and uses that power for good. It might feel favoritist. I'm tempted to ask what makes this family more deserving of rescue than any other Roman family, yet he saved them all the same. It's quite an unnerving moment, accompanied by these final shots of the destruction of Pompeii from afar. Unfortunately, we had to have the Doctor explaining how exactly this girl got her future sight and why it stopped, which was kinda unnecessary and dragged out this beautiful moment for longer than needed. The same can be said of this epilogue, honestly, deifying the Doctor and Donna, allowing this family to rationalize their escape from death. So, did it suck? The Doctor definitely isn't at his best in this episode. He puts out lots of fires, but apparently some fires are just too big to put out. I hope this gives you, dear viewer, some idea of why I wanted to skip this episode. It has its ups and downs and isn't really that consequential. As I mentioned, the bad guys spoil what could have been a decent disaster episode, and a lot of convenience happens despite there being a bountiful amount of expositional dialogue in this story. There are some funny moments though, accompanied by the excellent pairing of the Doctor and Donna. The disaster that followed with the choices that compel our characters prevented this episode from being a forgotten pile of ash like Pompeii was for centuries. I give Fires of Pompeii a 5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the work I do on this page, please consider making a pledge on Patreon. What do you think of this episode? Leave a comment below or join us for a Benny on the Discord server, where we'll continue this discussion.